Have you ever found yourself caught in a peculiar loop? You deeply desire a committed, meaningful relationship, perhaps even crave the intimacy and partnership, yet somehow you consistently find yourself alone. Or perhaps you enter connections that never quite deepen, always remaining just out of reach, like a mirage on the horizon. It's a profound disconnect between conscious yearning and unconscious behavior. Tonight, we unravel the forever single paradox, a pattern where the yearning for connection meets a hidden, often powerful resistance to truly finding it. Welcome to LoveThreads. Ever feel like modern love is less a romantic ideal and more a complex algorithm, constantly recalculating as you navigate endless data points? Like you're caught in a perpetual loop of choices, trying to find a connection that actually sticks in a world buzzing with alternatives. This is where we dive in. At LoveThreads, we don't just talk about relationships, we deconstruct them. We blend authentic, grounded insights with robust, evidence-based psychology, giving you the real intelligence on why we connect, why we sometimes misstep, and how to truly thrive when love feels like a constantly shifting landscape. Tonight, we're cutting through the digital noise to unravel a dilemma that grips countless hearts, the forever single paradox. Have you ever found yourself caught in that peculiar loop? You deeply desire a committed, meaningful relationship, perhaps even crave intimacy and partnership, yet somehow you consistently find yourself alone. Or perhaps you enter connections that never quite deepen, always remaining just out of reach like a mirage on the horizon. This isn't just a fleeting doubt, it's a profound disconnect between conscious yearning and unconscious behavior, a powerful current where the desire for connection meets a hidden, often powerful resistance to truly finding it. We're here to strip away the surface-level anxieties, to go deep into the psychological roots, internal mechanisms, and profound impact of this relentless pattern. And, most importantly, to uncover how to cultivate a more genuine, fulfilling approach to love. This central dilemma focuses on the individual who, despite genuinely wanting a deep relationship, repeatedly finds themselves either alone or caught in a series of fleeting, superficial connections. We'll embark on a comprehensive journey to understand the hidden mechanisms behind this pattern, delving into how our earliest experiences can shape our adult approach to closeness, examining the profound impact of a reluctance towards emotional openness, and identifying the subtle yet powerful ways we might inadvertently undermine our own relational success. This isn't about judgment, it's about illumination and empowerment. The patterns we observe in the forever single paradox are rarely arbitrary. They are deeply rooted in our past experiences and fundamental ways of relating to the world. Understanding these unseen architects of connection is the first step toward rewriting our narrative. A significant influence on our adult relationships stems from what we can call relational blueprints, the fundamental expectations and behaviors we learned about connection from our earliest caregivers. These blueprints aren't just conscious memories, they are deeply ingrained operating systems for how we perceive intimacy, trust, and even conflict. For some, early experiences might have involved caregivers who were inconsistently available emotionally. Perhaps they were loving and attentive sometimes, but distant, preoccupied, or overwhelmed at other times. This can lead to a blueprint where closeness is desired, but also associated with anxiety. The individual might become hypervigilant to signs of rejection or abandonment, leading them to either cling anxiously or to pull away preemptively before they can be hurt. The internal world of such an individual is often characterized by a constant push-pull, a yearning for deep connection, coupled with a profound fear that it will inevitably lead to disappointment or loss. When a relationship begins to deepen, this blueprint can trigger an internal alarm. This feels good, too good. It can't last. I need to protect myself before I get too invested. This protective impulse, though born of a desire to avoid pain, often manifests as the subtle withdrawal we observed earlier, or even the creation of conflict to test the partner's commitment, paradoxically pushing them away. Conversely, another relational blueprint might emerge from experiences where independence was implicitly or explicitly valued above emotional connection. Perhaps caregivers encouraged self-sufficiency to an extreme, or were uncomfortable with emotional expression, leading the child to learn that their emotional needs were a burden, or that true safety lay in relying only on themselves. This can foster a deep-seated belief that closeness is a threat to autonomy. For these individuals, true intimacy can feel like being engulfed, losing their sense of self, or becoming trapped. They might genuinely desire partnership, but their ingrained blueprint signals danger when a relationship approaches genuine merging. This leads to the subtle but persistent need for distance. They might intellectually understand the value of vulnerability, but their system is wired to perceive it as a risk. This often fuels the perfectionist partner-seeker tendency, where an impossibly high standard ensures no one ever gets close enough to trigger the perceived threat to their independence. The constant search for the one becomes a perpetual deferral of true intimacy, a safe way to pursue connection without actually achieving it. These blueprints operate largely outside of conscious awareness. The individual isn't deliberately sabotaging their relationships. Rather, their deeply wired system is responding to perceived threats based on past learning, attempting to keep them safe from a pain they may not even consciously remember. The conscious mind yearns for love, while the unconscious blueprint orchestrates avoidance. Intertwined with these relational blueprints is a profound fear of intimacy and vulnerability. This isn't merely shyness, it's a deeply rooted apprehension about revealing one's true self, including imperfections, insecurities, past hurts, and deepest desires. This fear acts as a powerful internal wall, preventing the very emotional closeness that forms the bedrock of a lasting relationship. Why is vulnerability so terrifying for some? It often stems from experiences where being vulnerable led to pain, rejection, judgment, or ridicule. Perhaps emotions were dismissed, trust was broken, or attempts at connection were met with indifference. The unconscious lesson learned is that vulnerability equals danger. The individual learns to construct elaborate emotional defenses, a polished facade, a witty retort always at the ready, a relentless focus on achievements, or a tendency to keep conversations light and superficial. The goal is to avoid exposing the raw, tender parts of themselves that they believe will be met with disapproval or abandonment. When a relationship approaches genuine intimacy, the kind where masks come off and true selves are revealed, the fear can trigger an intense internal alarm. The heart may race, anxiety may spike, and a powerful urge to flee or create distance emerges. This manifests as the sudden emotional withdrawal, the manufactured conflict, or the sudden loss of interest. The thought of being truly seen becomes overwhelming. The irony is heartbreaking. The very thing they desire, deep, authentic connection, requires the very thing they fear most, genuine vulnerability. Without the courage to be vulnerable, relationships remain stuck at a superficial level, perpetually failing to meet the profound yearning for intimacy. The seeker in our first anecdote experienced this directly. The internal discomfort of moving from lighthearted banter to deeper topics was the fear of vulnerability kicking in, leading to the unconscious withdrawal. The ultimate outcome of these underlying fears and blueprints is often self-sabotage patterns. These are unconscious behaviors that contradict one's stated goals, effectively undermining one's own chances at happiness and fulfillment. For the forever single individual, self-sabotage is the active mechanism that perpetuates their paradox. This can manifest in numerous ways. One common form is choosing unavailable partners, consistently being attracted to or pursuing individuals who are already in relationships, geographically distant, emotionally detached, or otherwise genuinely incapable of fulfilling a committed partnership. This allows the fantasy of love to persist without the risk of actual intimacy. Another manifestation is creating conflict at critical junctures. Just as a relationship enters a significant phase, like discussing exclusivity or meeting family, an individual might instigate a major argument or create drama that pushes the partner away. The tension of deepening commitment unconsciously triggers the need for distance. We also see finding fatal flaws, where an unconscious need to avoid intimacy can lead to hyper-focusing on minor imperfections in a partner, exaggerating them into deal breakers. This allows the individual to terminate a relationship before it gets too close, rationalizing it as just not the right fit, rather than acknowledging their own fear. Furthermore, procrastinating or hesitating can be a form of self-sabotage, delaying commitment, avoiding difficult conversations, or postponing decisions that would deepen the relationship. This passive approach effectively stalls progress and frustrates the partner. Lastly, withdrawing emotionally or physically involves becoming less engaged, less affectionate, or less present when the relationship demands more emotional investment. This creates a vacuum that pushes the partner away. The roots of self-sabotage are complex, often tied to deeply ingrained beliefs about self-worth. I don't deserve this happiness, or I am not worthy of true love, or a profound unconscious fear of the unknown. Intimacy is too risky, too painful, too overwhelming. The familiar pain of being alone, though consciously undesired, can paradoxically feel safer and more predictable than the unpredictable emotional landscape of a deeply committed, truly intimate relationship. The unconscious mind, in an effort to protect us from perceived greater pain, often defaults to these familiar, albeit unfulfilling patterns. It prioritizes safety over genuine connection, even when that safety comes at the cost of profound loneliness. For many, the initial turning point is simply the realization that the pattern is internal, not just external. It's the moment the individual stops blaming fate or other people and begins to ask, why does this always happen to me? They start to notice the similarities in how relationships end, or how they unconsciously pull away just as things get serious. This could look like a moment of self-reflection after a promising connection fades, where they ponder, why did I stop texting them back as frequently right when they started talking about meeting my family? The question isn't about the other person's actions, but their own subtle retreat. Or perhaps after breaking up with someone who was seemingly wonderful, a thought arises. Was that fatal flaw truly a deal breaker, or was it just my excuse to end things? They might recall similar flaws in previous partners, realizing the common denominator was their reaction, not the flaw itself. There's also the familiar feeling of the immediate relief after a major argument, which is quickly replaced by profound loneliness and regret, prompting the question, did I push them away? Was that argument necessary, or was it a way for me to escape the intimacy that was building? This dawning awareness is crucial. It's the shift from a victim mindset to one of personal agency, however uncomfortable that agency might feel at first. It's the recognition that while they desire connection, something within them is actively, though unconsciously, preventing it. Once the pattern is acknowledged as internal, the next layer of realization often involves connecting it to the deeper psychological roots. This phase can be profoundly emotional, as it involves revisiting uncomfortable truths and understanding how past experiences shaped present behavior. This is where the insights into relational blueprints and the fear of vulnerability truly resonate. The individual might recall specific childhood moments, perhaps a time their emotional needs were dismissed or ridiculed, planting the seed of vulnerability equals danger. They might realize how this made them build a wall around their emotions, making it feel unsafe to truly open up to a partner. Or they might recall an early relationship where they felt overwhelmed or smothered, leading to the belief that intimacy means losing oneself. This could explain their intense need for space or their tendency to run when a relationship starts to feel too close. There could also be instances where their efforts to gain approval through self-sufficiency were rewarded, inadvertently teaching them that showing need or dependence was a sign of weakness. This reinforces the idea that they must always be strong and independent, even in a partnership. This process of connecting the dots, oh, that's why I always pull away, or now I understand why I always find a reason to leave, is the turning point itself. It's no longer just a perplexing pattern, it's a logical, albeit unhelpful, strategy developed long ago for self-preservation. The emotional realization is key. The recognition that these protective mechanisms, while once necessary, are now actively preventing the very thing they desire most. The discomfort of this realization is often profound, but it's a necessary catalyst for change. It's the moment they truly understand that their unconscious mind has been prioritizing safety, even at the cost of connection. This realization isn't about blaming oneself or one's past, it's about gaining clarity. It's the moment the individual transitions from being a passive recipient of their relational fate to an active participant, capable of conscious choice. This understanding empowers them to finally begin the difficult but deeply rewarding work of rewriting their narrative. They now know what they're doing, and more importantly, why. This newfound insight fuels a powerful motivation to break the cycle, recognizing that the continued pain of loneliness outweighs the discomfort of facing their fears. The stage is set for action. In our journey through the forever single paradox, we've unmasked its subtle manifestations, dissected its deep psychological roots, from early relational blueprints to the fear of vulnerability and the cunning mechanisms of self-sabotage, and arrived at the crucial turning point of realization. The individual now understands what is happening and why. But understanding is only the beginning. Now we move to the transformational phase, the application of strategies. This is where insight translates into action, and the narrative of perpetual solitude begins to genuinely shift. Breaking free from the forever single paradox is not a passive process. It demands active engagement, courage, and consistent practice. It's about consciously overriding deeply ingrained patterns and building new, healthier ways of relating. This phase involves specific, actionable strategies, each building upon the last, to foster genuine intimacy. Before we can genuinely connect with others, we must first deepen our connection with ourselves. This means addressing those unmet emotional needs and cultivating a robust sense of self-worth that isn't contingent on external validation or a partner's presence. To do this, take time to explore your own interests, passions, and values independent of any potential partner. Ask yourself what brings you joy, what sparks your curiosity. Reconnect with hobbies you abandoned or explore new ones, understanding this isn't selfish. It's essential for building a rich inner life that makes you a whole, interesting individual, not someone seeking completion from another. Additionally, the journey of confronting deeply ingrained patterns can be challenging and emotionally taxing. So instead of self-criticism when you stumble, practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a dear friend facing a similar struggle, acknowledging the pain of the paradox without judgment. This gentle approach reduces the internal resistance to change and builds resilience. For instance, if you catch yourself pulling away emotionally, instead of thinking, "I always do this, I'm hopeless," try, "This is a familiar protective pattern and it makes sense given my past. How can I respond differently this time?" Finally, many who fall into the forever single paradox unconsciously hope a partner will fulfill all their unmet needs. Begin to consciously identify and meet your own needs. If you crave validation, find ways to validate yourself through accomplishments or positive self-talk. If you crave security, build financial stability or cultivate a strong support network of friends and family. The more self-sufficient you become in meeting your own needs, the less you'll inadvertently place that immense burden on a potential partner, freeing the relationship to be about shared joy and mutual support rather than desperate seeking. This is perhaps the most challenging, yet most crucial strategy. It involves consciously choosing to lower the emotional walls built for protection, step by careful step. Don't aim for radical self-exposure on the first date. Instead, begin by practicing vulnerability in lower-stakes environments with a trusted friend, a family member, or even a therapist. Share a genuine fear, an insecurity, or a past mistake, and observe that the world doesn't collapse and you are not rejected. This builds confidence. Furthermore, when you're in a potential romantic connection and that familiar feeling of discomfort, anxiety, or the urge to flee arises as intimacy deepens, recognize it for what it is, the fear of vulnerability. Instead of retreating, consciously choose to lean into it. This might mean staying present in a difficult conversation, admitting you're nervous, or sharing a feeling even if your voice trembles. For example, if you feel the urge to cancel a date that's becoming too serious, consciously choose to go and perhaps share your apprehension, such as, "I'm a little nervous about how quickly things are progressing, but I'm also excited." Most importantly, instead of trying to present a flawless version of yourself, practice communicating your true thoughts and feelings, even if they're not perfectly eloquent. If a conflict arises, express your actual hurt or frustration, rather than resorting to an old self-sabotaging pattern like defensiveness or withdrawal. Authenticity, even with its imperfections, is infinitely more appealing and sustainable than a carefully constructed facade. Once you've identified your specific self-sabotaging patterns, such as finding fatal flaws, manufacturing conflict, or choosing unavailable partners, the next step is to consciously intervene and choose a different path. When you feel the familiar urge to pull away, to nitpick, or to create drama, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, is this truly serving my desire for connection, or is this my old pattern trying to protect me? This conscious pause creates a crucial space for a new choice. If you're the perfectionist partner seeker, consciously reevaluate your checklist. Are you dismissing genuinely good people over minor issues that are actually just excuses? Try to differentiate between true incompatibility and discomfort with intimacy. Give people a second chance, and consider what underlying fear might be driving your excessive criticism. If manufactured conflict is your pattern, learn and practice healthier conflict resolution skills. This means active listening, expressing your needs and feelings without blame, and focusing on solutions rather than winning. When the urge to escalate arises, consciously de-escalate. Perhaps take a break from the conversation, agree to revisit it later, or even acknowledge aloud, "I'm feeling triggered right now and I need a moment." Finally, if choosing unavailable partners is your pattern, make a conscious decision to only pursue individuals who are genuinely available for the kind of relationship you desire. This means being honest with yourself early on about a person's relational status and capacity. Cultivating secure interdependence, the goal of healthy connection. The ultimate aim is not to become completely independent, which often leads back to isolation, but to cultivate secure interdependence. This is the capacity for both autonomy and deep connection, where two whole individuals choose to connect, grow, and support each other, rather than merging or needing each other to feel complete. To achieve this, seek out relationships where both partners are committed to their individual growth and the growth of the relationship itself. A healthy partnership isn't about two halves making a whole. It's about two wholes sharing a journey. Continuously practice open, honest communication about needs, feelings, and boundaries, as this builds trust and resilience in the face of inevitable challenges. Remember that healthy relationships thrive on both differentiation and connection. You can maintain your unique identity, interests, and opinions while also building profound intimacy and shared life experiences. It's a dance between individuality and togetherness. This application of strategies is a continuous journey, not a destination. There will be moments of success and moments of struggle. But with each conscious choice to lean into discomfort, to be vulnerable, and to disrupt old patterns, you are actively rewriting your relational narrative, moving closer to the authentic, fulfilling connection you truly desire. The forever single is not a permanent state. It is a temporary chapter that you have the power to close. Resolution and growth, a new chapter of connection. Your journey out of the forever single paradox is rarely a sudden leap from isolation to a perfect partnership. Instead, it is a process of incremental growth, marked by small, consistent victories and a deepening capacity for authentic connection. The resolution isn't necessarily finding the one immediately, but rather transforming into an individual who is ready and capable of sustaining deep love. As you embark on this path of self-discovery, after the turning point of realization and through the dedicated application of strategies, your internal and external landscape begins to shift. The initial steps are often awkward, even uncomfortable. The first time you consciously choose to lean into vulnerability instead of pulling away, it feels terrifying. Perhaps you admit a small fear to a new romantic interest instead of deflecting with humor, or you stay present in a slightly tense conversation instead of creating a dramatic exit. There might be internal panic, a desire to revert to old, familiar, protective behaviors. But by enduring that discomfort, you experience a new outcome. The connection doesn't shatter. Instead, it deepens. The other person might respond with empathy, understanding, or even share a vulnerability of their own, creating a genuine moment of human connection that feels profoundly different from past interactions. This initial success, however small, becomes a powerful reinforcer. It builds self-efficacy, your belief in your own ability to succeed. With each deliberate choice to act differently, the neural pathways associated with old patterns weaken and new pathways for healthy connection begin to strengthen. If you have embodied the perfectionist partner-seeker tendency, you might find yourself consciously overriding your internal flaw-finding mechanism. You might decide to go on a second or third date with someone who isn't perfect, choosing to explore genuine compatibility rather than dismissing them based on a trivial detail. You learn to differentiate between a truly unhealthy dynamic and the discomfort of genuine intimacy that requires you to let go of an idealized fantasy. This often leads to a surprising discovery that human connection, with all its beautiful imperfections, is far more fulfilling than an unattainable ideal. You begin to appreciate the richness of real people, rather than rejecting them for not fitting a rigid mold. Similarly, if you previously manufactured conflict to create distance, you begin to learn to regulate your own internal anxiety. Instead of lashing out when feeling overwhelmed by closeness, you might use techniques like taking a brief time out, articulating your internal state. "I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed right now, can we talk about this later?" Or practicing active listening when your partner expresses a need. This doesn't mean conflict disappears entirely. Healthy relationships have disagreements, but the conflict becomes an opportunity for growth and deeper understanding rather than a self-destructive escape hatch. You learn that navigating discomfort can actually strengthen the bond rather than break it. Critically, your relational blueprints begin to be rewritten. The ingrained belief that intimacy equals threat starts to be challenged by lived experience. You learn that being authentic doesn't necessarily lead to abandonment, and that healthy interdependence allows for both profound connection and individual autonomy. You begin to trust yourself to navigate vulnerability, and in turn, trust that some partners are capable of reciprocal care and respect. The shift in resolution and growth is evident in several key areas.
Internally, there is a noticeable reduction in the anxiety surrounding intimacy. You feel more comfortable in your own skin, less compelled to perform or hide, and loneliness shifts from a desperate ache to a quiet space that can be filled by self-connection or chosen friendships. In your dating approach, it becomes more intentional and less frantic, seeking genuine connection over superficial attraction and communicating your boundaries and needs respectfully from the outset, screening for availability and emotional maturity in others rather than being drawn only to those who confirm old patterns. As for relationship depth, when you do enter a relationship, it moves beyond the superficial. There is a greater capacity for emotional sharing, navigating challenges together, and building shared experiences rooted in mutual understanding and respect. With the previous fizzle-out phase replaced by conscious effort to deepen the bond. Perhaps the most significant sign of growth is your ability to form truly authentic connections, not just in romantic relationships, but in all areas of life. This means showing up as your true self, accepting imperfections in yourself and others, and fostering relationships based on genuine mutual respect and care, rather than fear or a desperate need for validation. This resolution isn't a final destination of perpetual bliss. Life and relationships will always present challenges, but you are no longer trapped in the forever single paradox. You have gained the tools, the self-awareness, and the courage to navigate your love threads with greater intention and wisdom, moving towards a future where deep, fulfilling connection is not just a yearning, but a lived reality. You are now an active participant in your relational destiny.
The journey away from the endless search for someone better is a path of profound self-discovery and true relational maturity. It demands that we look beyond the curated ideals, beyond the constant digital scroll of perceived possibilities, and truly see the quiet, consistent acts of love that build a resilient, fulfilling partnership. It's about understanding that the most powerful connections are often forged not in the pursuit of an elusive perfect future, but in the unwavering presence and genuine appreciation for the rich reality of love found in the here and now. This shift allows for a liberation from the anxieties of what if, opening the door to a more authentic, sustainable, and deeply satisfying experience of connection. The complex tapestry of our modern lives is rich with these profound bonds waiting to be fully embraced and appreciated. If this deep dive into the true nature of love resonated with you, and if you're ready to continue unraveling the intricate threads of modern connection, then subscribe to LoveThreads. Join our community for more insights, clarity, and a fresh perspective on navigating your own path to meaningful relationships. Don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button now.